Have you ever had one of those things when you meet someone and you instantly feel that you connect with them on so many levels? You know this person from a long, long time. This is what I have felt with Sarah Sparks for a long time. In fact, we have never met in person till date, but we have been, every time we talk, the conversation is sparkling and the atmosphere is electrifying. And I feel so much energized whenever I talk to her. So let me introduce you to today's guest, Sarah Sparks.
Mm. Oh, thank you so much for the beautiful words. Oh my goodness.
Uh, Let me just tell you a little bit about Sarah Sparks. She is a highly sought after business spiritual advisor for Create the Spark. Sarah is a farm raised, college educated, former local government employee turned business owner who is no longer ashamed of her spiritual woo woo ness. She aligns the soul of your business with the business of your soul, so to speak. And Sarah believes using your intuition in business is the valid way of doing business, and she said she can help you tap into that. So welcome to the show. Believe in yourself, Rohini. Very warm welcome from all of us, Sarah.
Oh,
So
thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. And that I do feel a connection with you as well. And I love our conversations and just how free flowing they are. So thank you so
yeah.
much.
So when I wanted to do this podcast, I knew instantaneously that you were going to be my first guest.
Oh,
Call it intuition, call it spirituality, or something. The calling came from inside, and that's what I went with. That's what I'm going with. You had to be my first guest. So,
oh,
a very big warm welcome. Uh,
oh, awesome. Well, I'm
today,
excited to connect with everyone and share a bit and share you and just celebrate all of this. So
yes.
congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you so much. Today is going to be all about you. We want to talk about your journey and we want to understand how you became who you are today.
Oh my. Well, it's
So,
not always sunshine and roses, and
of course,
sometimes
that
I,
is the part we want to know. That is the part we want to enlighten our listeners, because most people, when they reach a successful stage, people think that, that is where they started or that is where they began. The struggles are left behind the curtain. What we went through, the self doubts we went through, the uh, broken beliefs that happened in between, all those things are not revealed to people. This is what I want to do. I want to take someone who has gone there and understand how they started, what were their vulnerabilities, and how they overcame, so that our listeners can take inspiration from that and start believing in
yes.
themselves as well. I want people to understand that they are not alone when they feel vulnerable at the beginning. They are not alone
Mhm.
when they have all these self doubts and this lack of belief in themselves in the initial stages of starting out. So that
Oh,
is what
yes.
is the podcast is all about. That is what the
Mhm.
podcast is about. So let's start from where you began, how your journey started.
Yes. So I have known for my whole life that I'm able to have this connection with my own intuition.
Mm.
And my voice sounds a little bit different than what it normally does. I kind of have this cold thing going on. So if anybody's
Don't worry,
listening, they
even I
like,
do. Even I do.
so I've always known that I have this intuition, this gift. Yet when I asked for help from divine, I would say divine, some people call it God, source, creator, spirit, the universe, self, higher self, inner spirit. I am not here to judge any of that. I'm not even here to talk about religion. It's just you connecting with the best parts of you. That's why I am here. And I didn't know why my soul came into my body when I started this journey. I just knew that I no longer wanted to be hurting. I wanted to be able to look into the mirror and not hate myself. I hated my voice. I hated the fact that I'm 5'9". I hated the fact that I was tall and that I've been 5'9" since I was 9, 10, 10 years old. I, to be really personal, I got my period when I was 9, 10 as well. And
Mhm.
so there were so many things about me that made me not like the woman that I became so at such a young age that really when I started on this journey, I wasn't this big ball of spark. And a friend of mine who's known me since I was 8 was like, "Oh, Sarah, you've always been inspiring people." But at that age, I had so many insecurities around being too tall, being too skinny. I was raised on a farm in the middle of, of the Midwest and in the United States. I wasn't diverse. I had a stutter when I was younger. So there was just so
Oh.
many things that I kept inside of us. And as you know, and some of your listeners may know as well, the subconscious is formed between conception and age 6. And
True.
the subconscious is where all the beliefs about ourselves are stored. And so when I had that stutter, or I would be thinking that I'm just weird or odd, or that I didn't know how to play with others because I was raised by people who were 42 and 45 and then 50s and 60s when everybody else's parents were in their 20s and 30s. And so I was
Oh.
always around adults. So I was like, well, how does someone play? I mean, there's like tasks to do, there's chores to do. And so there was just so many things. But mainly when I very first started years ago, before I even started my business,
Mm.
all I really wanted to do was look in the mirror and love the woman that I saw.
That is actually a good start that you wanted to do that. Many people don't even realize that they have to go through that transition, look in the mirror and try to start to like yourself instead of hating what you see or looking for parts that are negative.
Yes.
See,
And, and
anybody
I
would
was,
love to have your height, so to speak, but for you that was a weak point. So
oh,
it's
and
it's not that what you have or what you don't have. It's that what you see as weakness is what
mhm,
matters at the end of the day, right?
yes,
So
yes,
that is what I want to tell all of our listeners as well. That is what I want to speak to, that part, that whatever you are considering is weakness might be positive to most of the people out there, but you are
mhm,
thinking of it as weakness. You are thinking of it as something that you need to work with. So what you need to work with is try and believe that, this has to be the better part of me instead of
yeah.
going into
And
that.
one major thing that really started shifting, that this is about 5, 7 years into my own self discovery and believing in myself and letting go of so many fears and beliefs and diving into my
I want to
subconscious.
I want to just take you a little bit back there. How did it start? How did the self discovery start? I want to know about
Oh,
that phase.
I got divorced.
Okay.
I right before the divorce, I planned my own death. And I
Oh.
believe now that, and some people don't like that I am so blunt about that, but I did. I was not, and I didn't go through with it because I heard this voice that felt like it was outside of myself at the time. It didn't feel like it was just me thinking it.
Mm.
And I heard it 3 different times. And the third time I finally listened, and it was a profound moment. That the 3 times it said to me, "You're meant for more." And it started as like a little whisper, and then the last time it was
Mhm.
so loud and booming, and it was a week before I was planning to no longer be here. And so yes, I wanted to look in the mirror, but there was this darkness. There was a lot of self-hatred. There was all this. So from those experiences of knowing that I'm meant for more, wanting to figure out, well, if something believes in me, then I need to figure out, what is this you're meant for more? What does that mean? It was my curiosity that really kept me going. And then I thought, well, if something believes in me, then maybe I can learn to believe in
Mm.
myself, because I was not there at all. And then I got divorced. And when I moved out and I was in my own apartment, I ran across a book and I believe I got it off of Amazon. And it was like, oh, like what was it? It was there's all these chapters around like what's wrong with me or something. Like there was
Oh, oh my God.
like 20 some chapters about like what can I do to fix my life? Or I don't know. I can't even remember, but it was very blunt. And I just went through
Okay.
each of the chapters and I was like, oh, yeah, I believe this about myself. And it was all this negativity. And
Mm.
then I remember waking up from a dream, and the dream, these words just kept coming over and over in my mind. And it was learning relinquishes fear.
Mhm.
And relinquish is not a word that I usually say. And
Okay.
so I was like, well, and so I just wrote that down. Learning relinquishes fear. And I started like diving into, and I remember seeing a segment on Oprah once where she was talking about dream boards. And so one night when it was like a Friday night, all by myself in my apartment, not going out, not doing anything crazy. And I was like late 20s at the time. Um, and I decided to create this vision board. And I remember wanting to work at the time I was in local government, and I wanted to work for contemporary company that's like
Okay.
forward thinking. So I found this photo of this all this art and this staircase that like twisted around, and had like marble, and it just I was like, ooh, I like the look of this. If I walked into this entryway every day, I would be like,
Mm.
yes, I am here. This is where I want to work. Fast forward, I
Mm.
met Craig Sparks, who is now my husband, but
Your
I met
husband.
him.
Mm.
I went to hang out with him. I ended up applying for jobs when I was still in Iowa. He lived in Florida. So I was in Iowa. I would apply for jobs and I got an interview. And so I'm like, well, Craig, I'm going to, come down and see you, but I'm going to go to this interview as well. So I went to the interview and I walked through the doors. It was the photo. It was the place of where I had put it on my dream board, and
Oh,
not
wow.
knowing, not knowing
Wow.
that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't know about law of attraction. I didn't know about the
That's
power of my thoughts.
that's wonderful manifestation. The manifestation that we think is
Yes.
impossible. That's a wonderful
Mhm.
example of manifestation that you could actually manifest the place that you were going to walk into.
I
That's
know. And
really,
I
really
walked in
interesting.
there and I loved it. But once I started discovering like the actual like job and stuff, I knew it wasn't for me.
Mm.
So does that help? Or I could keep going. I mean, I went from I just kept looking at different books and kept researching when I
Mm.
finally moved to Florida
Mm.
um to
So when
start my
you
life.
when you started your started to go think about going on your own, started to think about doing your own business. How was
Oh
that
yeah.
experience?
So that this is also very interesting. I myself lived 9 principles. I got again 3 times someone said to me, you just don't really have principles to stand
Mm.
on.
Mm.
And I was like, well, screw you. Like that's kind of like mean to say to somebody, you don't have any principles to stand on, but it was true. So I said to Spirit, and at this time I'm establishing my gifts. And I was like, okay, so Spirit, if I have any principles, what are they? And
Mm.
Spirit says, you have 9. And I was working
Okay.
for an author coach at the time, and she
Mm.
gave me this little book called, it said Dream Big. So I
Mm.
wrote all of the 9 principles down, and I stayed curious with it. So I was like, okay, what does it mean to I think the first principle is to I forget because it's been a hot minute.
It's
Um,
okay.
but respect and honor the oneness within. And
Mm.
I didn't know what oneness meant, but then I was like, let's dive into respecting and honoring myself. What does that
Mm.
look like? What are some activities that I could do to help this? What are some tools? Are there books? So I just dove into every single one. I lived each one for 9 months. At the end of those 9 months, 3 different people from 3 different locations all said to me, there's a spark about you. Could you teach me how to have that spark?
Oh,
And
wow.
after like the third person telling me this, and they all don't know each other. Again, I was at a grocery store, I was on a bike ride, I was at a wedding, and I was like,
So, at what point were you able to accept your uniqueness, so to speak? Every one of us are born with this unique quality. Every one of us have a very unique aura about us, a very unique inner self, which for many doesn't come out at all. For many people, they try to hide behind,
Yeah.
what the society is expecting us to do, what people want us to do,
Oh, yeah.
not many other things. So when
September around September 5th, 2018, I came out of the spiritual closet. I remember because Facebook
okay.
just like reminded me a few months ago. So it was four-ish or years ago now. And I came out of the spiritual closet and I
I
made
like
an
that word,
announcement.
spiritual closet. I'm going
I know.
to use that.
Excuse me for the coughing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
sure.
I made a post that told people that I have a spiritual gift and I'm intuitive and I can talk with their soul and I can tell them why their soul came into this world and why they're here. Because a lot of people come to me asking, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose?
Mm,
So I just made that post, but it wasn't until February, February 19th, 2019. It
mm.
was a friend of mine's birthday, and she
Okay.
asked me to come to her home and channel live for her friends. And she's like, I don't know if this is insulting that you're going to be the entertainment, but I'm going to pay you and I
Mm.
want you to give us all messages.
Okay.
And I said, I will, but I've never done this before. And she goes, really? And I was listening to, while I was getting ready for this event, I was listening to, it is by the Greatest Showman. This Is Me. Is that
Mm.
the song? And it's when the bearded lady is like coming out into the ring
Okay.
and
Yeah.
she's
Mm.
talking about like standing up and really seeing like having people see her for who she
See
is.
you. Mm.
And that's when I allowed people to see me for who I am. And I just continued to allow people to see me channeling live, see spirit speaking through me. I became no longer ashamed of my spiritual woo-woo-ness. There's so many, like, I feel I work really hard at being a clear channel through which spirit can speak through. It requires me to let go, face my fears, do things scared, get rid of, work with my subconscious a lot to release
Mm-hmm.
those beliefs that are stored in there, identify my core limiting belief, create visualizations around it. So it is a lot of work. The energy work, the mindset work is the work.
Is
And
the
then
work. Exactly. So, when you were facing that moment, how scared were you?
I was super scared. Biggest thing is I just didn't want to screw up someone else's life. You
So
know,
when somebody else is going through this transition, let's say one of our listeners is going through this transition of, wanting to show their inner self, wanting to show their real self to the world, what would be your advice?
so I got three things that I wrote down.
Mm,
One is allow others, whomever those others are, parents, siblings, significant other, children, whomever is really close to you that may have opinions about what you should or shouldn't be doing with your life,
mm,
allow them to be whomever they're choosing to be. Allow them to say whatever they're choosing to say. It has nothing to do with you. You focus on you and what you want.
wow, that's
And the
really
second
powerful.
thing is to stay curious.
Mm,
When spirit tells me a message, I don't just be like, oh, I'm supposed to be happy today. What does being mean? What does happy mean? And what does today mean? Is it in this moment? Why would spirit be telling me to be happy today? Is it what was going on within me that I wouldn't be vibrating, that I wouldn't be happy already?
mm.
Do I need to release something? So I stay curious. Not overthinking. That's not the same. I stay curious with something. So that's what I suggest. And then the third thing is find your soul's calling, your purpose, and be dedicated to living the life that your soul came here to experience. When you are more dedicated. Sometimes people have words such as committed, and
Mm,
they can't commit to things. Commitment is very conditional of might be tied to past of when people broke promises to them or they broke promises to themselves. But I find the
true,
word dedicated
true.
to be a powerful word. And so when I am more dedicated to my soul than my mood,
Mm,
and I take action even when I'm scared,
mm.
magic happens. The
So
alignment
give
happens.
us a little bit insight into that. How do any
Mm,
normal person who is, not
yeah.
very in touch with
So
their
let's say, for
inner self
instance, you were to
differentiate
go,
that?
you're to go to you're invited to a meeting,
Mm,
and you may have the belief that's going on inside your brain, do I really deserve to be at this meeting? Do I really, like, am I really good enough to be attending this meeting with everybody else?
true.
I mean,
That.
who am I to be at this meeting? And instead of buying into those thoughts, you connect with who you really are and be like, no, I am this strong, powerful, determined, amazing person that has been through a lot, and I have a lot to give. I'm going to stay curious with the be curious and be interested in the people that show up to this meeting. So this meeting is not about me, it's about them. And then you
True.
show up to the meeting
Mm,
and you're doing it afraid. But by doing it afraid, you then also help to reprogram all the emotions that are stored in the body. You're telling the self, your human self, no, I'm still going to do this. And
true.
it's not, and as long as the thing that you've been invited to do or that you're choosing to do feels good and right. Like if there's something that is like, I shouldn't be entering this building, then don't enter the building, you know?
So
So
how, according to everything that you have learned and you have been doing from this time, how do one break that fear? How do we break that, that mold of fear that we have in and around and come out and be our own self, be our inner self? I know
um
it's a very loaded question.
I know. I would have just just not to sound like Nike, but you just have to do it. Like there
True.
has to be action to break. So like let's say for instance, someone really wants like myself, I've released 35 pounds this this year
Mm.
in 2022. And I
Yeah,
know
I
you're
saw that. It was a
coming up.
great transformation, by the way.
Thank you.
Mm.
I had to just do it.
Mm.
Like I had a fear. My fear was that I would I would finally be seen. I kept on all this weight because it people don't look I know I people didn't look
That
at me.
really connects with me so many levels. You have no idea. That finally I will be seen part is still one of my fears that I'm still working on. Actually, I still
And
have
my
to get through that.
and it was multiple layers of because I'm a mom. And what if I'm seen as this sexy woman? Am I not being a good mom? And then if I'm being seen as a sexy woman, then am I putting something negative on my two girls, saying that you have to look a certain way? And then I thought, and so I asked them, I was like, if
Mm.
I become the fittest and strongest mama that you've ever met, would you not love me anymore? Because that was a
They-
fear that I had.
It is
And I
it
knew
is
that there,
actually the opposite. The what you were
and
feared, it's actually the opposite.
yeah,
Your kids would
and
love to see you like that.
yes, and my oldest is going to be 9 here soon, but she was 8 when I was asking her, and
Mm.
and people are like, you've talked to your 8-year-old like that, and I'm like, yeah, I do. I mean, because I'm not going to like hide. I'm not going to like, yes, this is a fear, but let's get it out.
Get
Because
it out.
I've thought about it too much. I've done the visualization of it, and
Mm.
finally, there has to be action applied.
True.
And so I had to prove to myself by taking the action that that it could be, it's okay. And so I had a conversation with her and I was like, would you still love me if I'm still fit and strong? And she says, I'm not going to get emotional, but I may. She's like, does that mean that you can run fast with me? Does that mean that you get to go on bike rides with me? And I was like,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
True.
Because I thought that I was, I don't want to sound like I was only judging myself. I don't care what anybody else's size is or anything. But for me, I couldn't run with my children. I wanted to go down the slides and I couldn't fit down the slide.
True. The
That
more fears that come within us actually come from either ourselves or very people who are very close to us. That is where the fears start. That is where, it originates, and that's what most people don't understand. We try to tackle with the society, with the bigger world, that we don't really realize that it is all within very small circle who is right next to us or within ourselves.
and what's been so cool is as I have been eating healthier,
Mm.
she's been like, so can I have the more vegetables and can we be eating like this and should I be eating smaller portions like just thinking about different things. And I'm like, and I've been open with her and I weigh my food and all the things and I tried really hard just to be open with her and be like
Mm.
from a health standpoint because and my youngest is 4.5. So I mean she's like she doesn't
That's okay.
observant and she's more mature.
Mm.
But it's been quite so. My point of bringing all that up is that I had a fear of truly being seen, and so if I hid behind this weight, then I wouldn't have to be seen. And but who was I really trying to hide from?
Once again bringing out your inner self, bringing your true self. You
Mhm.
were doing it internally for so long that you forgot to do it on the outside. You
I
know
know.
how many levels that it hits me personally. this
Mm.
this is actually a message you're passing on to me today, that
Oh,
I need to consider, that I need to work on that myself.
yeah.
I've
Oh,
also been struggling with the same fear, so to speak.
oh,
I'm never one to shy away from bringing my inner self out, but
yeah.
then I really am hiding my physical self behind
Uh-huh.
all the.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thank you for being so honest. I appreciate that.
No, it's see, as you said, one at certain point when we speak to people, when we start thinking, when we start doing something, or at any moment we start get these very strong feelings. That is, you call it a spiritual connection, a connection to the soul. I call it talking to my inner self.
Yeah.
So this is what my I want my listeners to understand, that that's happening right here, right now with you. As
Mm,
soon as you are talking, I'm getting this very strong connection with you. I'm getting this very strong intuition from inside, that exactly the same thing is happening to me, and I need to start considering the possibility that this is one of my fears and I need to get out of it. This happens with
mm,
many people, but you know what, we ignore that. We
yeah.
ignore that feeling, we ignore that intuition, which is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. I feel,
Accepting it openly, accepting it out loud, and then dwelling into the minor parts of it and understanding each layer of it and figuring it out is where we will start to heal, is where we will start to work on ourselves, is where your self discovery begins, so to speak.
yeah. I feel that the more that I ignored
Mm.
my inner self, who I really am, the further away I got from her. And that drove
True.
me into sadness, frustration, guilt, shame, anger, depression, so forth and so on. The more that I step into who I really am, the better I feel. I looked at a session that I channeled for a client she's still a client, but I channeled for her in January
Mm,
of 2022, and I hadn't started my health journey yet.
mm.
And I just talked with her today, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I just have to say I'm so sorry." And she says, "Why?" She's like, "You were so helpful." And I was like, "I was, but I was emitting anger." And she goes,
Okay.
"Are you serious?" And she goes, "I didn't pick that up at all." I said, "It was so weird rewatching that recording from
Mm.
before I started my journey, like this health journey, not let alone, I mean, let alone, there's so, like you said, there's so many different layers because
Layers, true.
the mindset work. I mean, when I first started, I was so obsessed with my body that I
Mm.
was so disconnected from my mind or my spirit.
I have done that.
Then,
I have done that. I
then,
actually became very thin somewhere around 2017 or so. But then it was wrong because I was torturing myself. My mindset was not that of, I want to be seen, I want to be visible. I was doing it for the pure reasons of, I was getting compliments from everybody. So
Mhm,
torture yourself more, do this more, do this more. That was the attitude with which I did it. And yes, I probably physically became thin, but my mental condition, my overall health was not well after that part of it. So
mhm,
something happened which where I snapped out of it, I came out of it, and then I realized, you know what, I need to work on my mental stuff first
mhm, mhm.
before, getting into
So
the
that is exactly
facing
what
the
I did.
fears.
Yes, I was even a group fitness instructor, so I was like super into my body.
Mm.
Then I wasn't paying attention to my mind or spirit. Then I did mindset work. And then I started, quote unquote, waking up and realizing that I have an inner spirit, that I have a soul, that there's energy. And then I'm like, well, if I'm this energy, I really don't even need this body. So who really cares about this body? And then excuse me, at the beginning of 2022, I was like, I actually can be all of me. I am a mind, body, and soul. And I made the decision that I want, when someone meets me and someone sees me for the first time, I want them to see my soul on the outside. Not, and when I walk into a room, I want to be felt before I'm even seen. And I just want it to be so in alignment.
It
And
is
it does,
so
and I'm,
important to get that balance, isn't it? That
mhm,
if you are working on only one part of it, then it somehow drags you down. It is
yes,
so important to get all of it and to get the right balance of all three of it.
yes, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. I want to wrap this up now with three things that help you in your self discovery journey. I'm sure you're still in the journey. We all are learning, we all are evolving each and every day. But I want to get that three important things that our listeners can take away from today's session and implement in their lives.
Right. Have something, what are your non-negotiables? So often we want to do a routine, or we have to have, okay, if I'm going to self-discovery, then I have to have meditation for 2 hours, and then like, and then you're like, well, I don't have time for that, so I don't. What are your non-negotiables that make you feel fantastic? If it is a glass of water, a cup of tea or coffee, and you live in gratitude for 5 minutes, and that makes you feel fantastic, then those are your non-negotiables and you do them every single day.
True.
So find out like what are your non-negotiables and do them every single day. And it does not have to be a long time. Just the consistency is key. That's the second thing that I'll say is consistency
Consistency.
is key. Consistency in doing anything. And what that does though is, yes, it gets your whole body, mind, soul into things, but it tells the universe, I am ready. Thank you, more please. And so you're consistently showing up. And I like whether it be in networking, for your business, for your life, if you're consistently showing up for others, for yourself, everything else will start showing up too.
True.
So,
Actually, I want to add here about consistency is when you start something, it takes away your energy. You start giving away your energy. But once you are consistent, once you do this for some time, it actually starts giving you energy. Your
mhm,
energy starts increases when you do your non-negotiables, when you do things that you are consistent with. They start giving you energy. This is something that I have understood in my personal experience that consistency brings. Let's get your third point and last one.
gratitude. And
Gratitude.
it
True.
is something, it's my third principle that I live by, and it is live in gratitude. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is think about in finance. If you appreciate something, it goes up in value. So
True.
why would that not be the same with your own life? And I like taking a little spin on it. And this really started changing the chemical makeup in my brain is when I began to be grateful for my intrinsic values. So I started every day being like, I am grateful, I am dot dot dot. I am grateful, I am happy. I am grateful, I am healthy. I am grateful, I am whole. I am grateful, I am alive. I am grateful, I am breathing. I am grateful.
True.
So it's like that's what I mean by living in gratitude.
True. I do this every morning as soon as I get up. I just stand in front of the mirror. Anything that I did, any negative that happened the previous day, I just kind of go through it, and then I stand and say three things I was grateful for what happened yesterday. Even if it is, as you said, I'm living, I'm breathing. Even if
Yes.
it is as simple as that, that
Mhm.
is the bigger this thing that I got up today, and I have this entire day to make a difference.
Oh, and if I could just add, I know that this is like a bonus for, but when you're talking about believing in yourself
Mm,
and like all my insecurities that made me feel odd or out of place
mm.
is actually what makes you
What makes
me.
you you? I know.
Yes.
So, so, so
And
true.
no one else can be me. No one else, like, even if they're, because I've met other people who channel just like me and do very similar things and align the soul of the business with the business of this. I mean, I've met from all over the world, Australia, India, um, Ireland, England, United States. I mean, like, there's us all around,
A lot of people, yeah.
but no one talks like me. No one looks like me. No one has weird little quirky things like me. No one's my size. Like it, we're all uniquely different, but yet we can be so similar in so many different
So many different.
fashions. But the things that you feel are your insecurities or the weirdness about you, that's actually what makes you you. And once I like loved on those parts, it was
Hmm.
also very helpful. So
True. That is the part you need to accept more. That is the part. See, self acceptance and self compassion plays a very big role in accepting yourself. You need to accept yourself and be compassionate about the parts that you don't like about yourself. Basically, start from there, and that is where your self discovery journey begins. As soon as you start accepting that, yes, this is also my part, this is also me, and I need to accept this is part of me, I need to be compassionate, I need to show kindness to this part of me, and that is where your journey begins.
mhm. Yes, yes. Thank you
Right.
so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much for joining, Sarah. On this note, we are going to wrap this up. It was great talking to you as always. And thank you so much for doing this for me. And I will see you next time.
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.